Hello, Joybox members. Birdie here, and I am coming to you to show you, guide you, give you a tutorial on how to create your August Joybox. So the August Joybox is the fun, super popular Scrabble tile wall art. That's a mouthful right there. And I can't display all of the tiles here in the video, but there'll be a picture, or there's a picture on your insert on kind of how it can be laid out. I'm also going to post in the group, and I'll send an email with a link to a website that helps you create the layout for things like this. So you could add to it or find different configurations on putting your tile art together. So let's get started. I'm gonna move my tiles that I painted. In the example, obviously I painted them with black background with the white letters. We did include other colors, so you can customize it to however your style is. And as always, you can add or use your own paints, whatever you have at home. Maybe you have a favorite brown, maybe you have a favorite stain, maybe you just want to go with some bright colors. You can do that too. So you will have your paint pack, and in the paint pack, you'll get the white, the gray, the black, and the brown. The paintbrush to paint your tiles. We have the makeup sponge to paint the letters and numbers. You get 2 tubes of the super glue, your sanding block for smoothing out your wood should you find your wood starts to feel rough after painting. So wood is very porous, and depending on how it was manufactured and if the wood was still wet and all sorts of things that come into play with painting wood, it is smooth right out of the gate, right? But sometimes when we paint them, it causes the little fibers in the wood to stand up. And if after you paint your piece, after you put that first coat on, you feel the wood and it's super rough, you can even visually see that, all of a sudden it looks not smooth and bumpy. Use your sanding block before you put your second coat on and just gently sand down those fibers. You don't have to rough sand it. You don't have to put a lot of pressure into it, just enough that you knock those fibers down and get back to that nice smooth finish. That way when you put your second coat on, you're good to go. So once it gets wet and those fibers stand up, they won't do that again. It's just that initial base coat. So this has multiple purposes. Again, one, if you need to knock those fibers down, and 2, you can use it to distress the edges and remove the paint to reveal either color behind it or the wood, the natural wood below. So that's what your little sanding block is for. You also have a baggie full of your clips and screws that you're going to need for your picture block. And then the tray that it all comes in can be used to dump the paints out, for paint mixing, for offloading your makeup sponge on, or just a tray to hold all of your tools. You also get 12 tiles in your kit, enough to spell family, love, and home. All of your all of your numbers will be inside your O, either in this format or some of these broke in transit, so we just put them inside the O freestanding like this. This is just something to help put the letters in and make sure that we made sure all of your, I keep saying letters. we cut these out to ensure that you had all of the numbers you needed. This was more for us in our packaging side. You can throw these away once you open your package. Okay, you also have your letters, again, to spell family, love, and home. So I'm gonna just put those aside with the O's together there, and then your wood block for your picture block. So that's everything that comes in your kit this month. Let's talk about what you're going to need to complete your kit. For this one, obviously a water jug to wash your brush out, a rag to make sure that you get all the water out of your brush and any cleanup. And then you're going to need a screwdriver for screwing in the hanger for your picture block and the clip. And then a ruler for placing your clips in the proper location. Other than that, those are the only tools that you're going to need. I do recommend, I'm a big proponent of baby wipes. I think they're great for giving us the faux stained look. So if you wanted to have a more stained look where you see the wood grain through the color, this works great. I'm actually going to use these today and show you that method. And then the last thing that I love having on hand is masking tape. Masking tape really is helpful in holding small bits such as your numbers. It can be helpful in holding these, and it's really difficult sometimes to hold these and paint them, right? And then you get paint everywhere. We're gonna let the masking tape do that work for us. And if you don't have a painter's masking tape, you can use any sort of low tack tape, washi tape, scotch tape, the brown masking tape. It doesn't have to be green, it can be blue, brown, whatever. I don't recommend using anything that's super strong like duct tape or some really strong shipping tape, because it will tear out the back. I've had it happen where it's teared out the back of the pieces of wood, and it kind of creates these little divots, which sometimes isn't a big deal when we're gluing that back down anyways, but just to be on the safe side, I try and stay away from duct tape. Okay, I think that's everything that we need. So let's get started. I'm going to start by painting the tiles and then completing the tiles, and then we'll work in the, well, how do I want to do that? We'll just work on it all together. Let's kind of paint everything and then glue it all together and then put the clips. Okay, so to start with, I am going to tape down my numbers. And I'm going to put all of those on my tape. And when I'm taping down letters, numbers, whatever it might be, I think about how they would be displayed on the piece. That way I ensure I am painting the right side. So I like to have them all right reading if I can, you know, if they're a word or whatnot. And that just, again, helps to ensure we're painting the right side. Now, if you accidentally paint the wrong side of a piece, no big deal. Just let it dry, flip it over, and start again. It's when we start gluing them down is where we get into problems. So, all right, I got my numbers taped down, and now I'm going to tape my letters down. And I'm going to put these on a couple pieces of tape. The other great thing about taping our pieces down is it gives us the flexibility to easily move my pieces. So I can, this acts like a tray. I can set these aside and get them out of my way as needed. It ensures that I don't lose any pieces. So highly recommend just having some masking tape at your craft table. Okay. All that good for that piece there. Just put that aside. I just need a small piece for the last two letters. There we go. I'm going to start by painting my tiles first and my block. And so with my example, I did just do a solid black paint. And if you want to have a solid color, whether it's black, white, gray, brown, whatever it is, use your black sponge brush. You're going to dip it in your paint and you're just going to brush it over, let it dry. If you find that the wood grain has popped up, use your sanding block to smooth it out and then put a second coat on. Black is a really great color because it covers very well. So if you are painting it black, you might not need a second coat. Unless you sand it, then you might need a second coat if you have that wood grain poking, standing up. So if you're going to paint solid, use your black sponge brush, paint it, and there we go. I'm going to show you how to stain it with the paint. Create a faux stain by using a baby wipe. I'm going to use my brown for this. And I have this on the wrong side. I usually have my paint on my right side, so let me get organized that way. And we'll keep them stacked, and we're just going to get everything out of the way here. So I like to use a plate. It's called a palette pad, actually. Kind of a painting pad that I've had forever. You can see it's kind of messy here. And what I'm going to do is, and you would use your tray for this, but I'm going to wrap that baby wipe around my finger. Now the other question that's come up is, does it have to be a baby wipe? Can I use a rag, an old rag, or a paper towel? And yes, you can. And let me tell you, the rag works great. Just get it damp so it has some moisture to it. You don't want it dripping. Wet it, wring it out really well, and that works great. Just remember that it should be an old rag. It's not going to wash out. It's permanent paint. The paper towel method works as well. You can get your paper towel wet, damp, bring it out, make sure it's super damp. The only thing with paper towels, if it's a lower quality paper towel, as you're wiping it on, it's going to start to fall apart. You can, fold it a couple times to get it so it's a couple plies thickness. It will last a little bit longer, but eventually it will fall apart. So you might need a couple paper towels if you're going that route, but it does work. Okay, so I dip my baby wipe in the paint. It's got quite a bit here, and I want to offload some of that. I don't need all of that. So when I say offload, I mean I am tapping it on some surface other than my piece. This is a paper pad. You can use your tray for that. And we're just getting rid of some of that excess. We don't need all of that. So that's offloading. Now we're ready to just smooth or rub the paint on. It just gives us this really great faux stained look without having to deal with oil-based stain. And you can see where I initially started, I've got it a little darker. And so we're gonna go to that offload pile, grab some more of that paint, and just start to feather in where I started to lose some of that paint. It got a little bit lighter, right? So we're gonna go over that area just a little bit and darken it up so it matches. Okay, and then we're gonna do that again. Load up, offload, and start just smoothing it out. The baby wipe works great because it's damp, and because the dampness helps push that paint around a little bit easier instead of using something that was dry. We would not be able to smooth out that paint like we are. And again, a rag, an old rag that you don't mind being stained with paint, or some damp paper towels works as well. I like the baby wipes because they are disposable and pretty wet, pretty damp for me. And they hold up. They are very sturdy. And they eventually do break down, just like a paper towel would, but you get quite a bit of use out of them. Okay, so as you're working with this, if you're using this faux stain method, don't be afraid to go over areas that you've already covered to get the darkness that you want in all areas. It is wood, so some of the wood will pick up that paint a little bit more and be a little bit darker, but in general, you can just keep going over it until it's the same level everywhere around. So like this piece is pretty good. It's kind of got this dark area here, but I can see that it's dark there because of the way the wood grain is. Everywhere else though has that same consistency, and that's what you're after. On the H, we've got this beautiful grain wood here. That's going to be naturally darker just because of how that wood is. It's just the characteristic of it. We've got a little bit of a darker area here, but in general, it's all the same. What's the word I want? Darkness. And after it dries and you see an area that looks a little light, little area of lacking, you can go back and just add a little more. And if you've missed a spot, if you see an area that's okay, so all of our tiles are painted, and I did paint the picture block the same way using the faux stained method with the brown. You could do that completely different if you wanted to. And I was able to do all my tiles with one baby wipe. Remember when you're doing your block, that wood is naturally going to have different wood grains. It might have a knot. It might have you know, this little rough area that, you know, a lot of sanding can take away, but it also adds to the beauty of the block. Look at your block and find the best side that fits you. And remember that this is a picture block, so if there's a knot here or kind of more in the center, that's going to get covered up if that bothers you. This side, the knot did have a little more pieces where it was missing, and if you like that more natural wood, it can give you that rustic feel, go with that side. Again, go with the side that you like best. Just look at both sides. Okay, after everything is painted, I'm gonna let that all sit and dry, and I'm gonna do the numbers and letters next. I'm gonna paint them black in this example, and I'm gonna paint both letters and numbers black. I'm gonna have them be the same. You could do them different colors if you wanted to as well. However you want. This is just a guide. This is not the rules. There are no rules when crafting. You get to decide how you want your pieces to be. And that is really the beauty of these craft kits, and kind of seeing what everyone is doing, and we inspire one another, we get inspired, and it's just so encouraging. So for the makeup sponge, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I like to preserve my makeup sponges and make them last as long as possible. This makeup sponge, we're going to use the bottom or the large end. We don't use this top end. This is how we hold it. But for me, I can get a few applications out of this. So what I'm going to do with mine is I'm going to cut mine in half. You don't have to do that. And then I have another applicator for another project. Because really I just need this smaller surface for applying my paint. Then the other thing is after I'm done applying my paint, I just let this makeup sponge sit on my palette, on my plate. It dries, it gets hard, and then I clip the hardened spot off, and I've got another application that I can do, or another craft I can do with this makeup sponge. So I like to preserve them or use them as many times as I can. Plus I don't like to wash them, so I just let them harden and I cut the ends off. Okay, so just like with the baby white, we're gonna load that makeup sponge. I'm gonna dip it in my pot. I'm gonna squeegee most of it off the side, pushing most of that paint. But there's still a lot of paint on my makeup sponge. And so I'm gonna offload it by tapping on my plate here and just tap a couple times. That's going to get rid of most of that paint, but it also allows that paint to kind of soak up inside the makeup sponge so that I can get quite a bit out of just that one dip, okay? And then we're gonna take it and just gently tap it on our letters. You don't wanna tap too hard, it's just a nice soft tapping motion. We tap too hard, and let me grab one of these and show you. So if I tap too hard, you'll see that that makeup sponge starts to bend over that edge, and now we've got paint on the edge. I like to keep my edges nice and clean. I keep them the color that they are from the laser, which is this really nice dark brown. It helps stand out. Now when you're painting with black, because the colors match so well, it really doesn't matter, right? You can't see that. But if you're painting your letters with a white paint or the gray or some other light color paint, you don't want that white to kind of spill over the edge and ruin that finish. So if we keep our tapping and bouncing of our makeup sponge nice and light. We keep those edges nice and clean, and the dark edges really help the pieces stand off your, it really makes them look more 3D and adds to that 3D look. Now, if you want to paint your edges, you're more than welcome to. I prefer not to. That's all a preference thing. Be aware that if you do paint your edges, it will require quite a few coats, especially if you're working with a light color like white. You're already starting with a dark edge, so painting with white will require 3 to even maybe 5 coats to get it a nice white finish. If you accidentally paint on the edge, if you notice that your makeup sponge got a little maybe too full, or it just went off the edge and you've got some paint on the edge, you can wipe it away with a baby wipe, a wet rag, a damp paper towel, and clean it up. If it's already dried, you can use your sanding block to sand away that color. Or the other option would be to use a dark marker, like a black or a dark brown marker, and just paint or color over your white or light color on the edge, and that cleans it up really well, and it's super fast. You can always use just a liner brush too and paint over the color if it's dry before you notice it's spilled over. So black here, like I said, is a super pigmented color and covers really nicely. So a lot of times when you're painting with black, you probably won't need a second coat. Sometimes you do. And especially because we are applying such a light coat here, I am going to apply a second coat. When you're painting, it's always better to paint with light coats, many light coats, as opposed to a super heavy coat. Trying to really lay your paint on thickly typically causes a messy finish. You get globs of paint, it dries uneven, and when you think it's dry, it really isn't, because there's wet paint underneath that top layer, and then you possibly smudge it and whatnot, so it tends to make for a messy finish. If you go with super light coats and do multiple light coats, you get a smoother finish. And actually, when painting with a light coat, it dries super fast. So by the time you get ready to paint that second coat, you swing back around to that first piece, it's going to be dry already. So I'll be able to apply a second coat immediately following my completion of these letters. Those first couple ones are already dry, and we'll get that second coat down. Okay, those done. Do the little numbers. Excuse me, numbers, I was right. I keep thinking I am using the wrong word for that. And are mixing them up. Okay. Slide that aside. Let's bring back those first pieces that we started with, and we'll put our second coat on. right, there we go. Everything is painted. And so now we can start gluing our pieces down. So I'm gonna grab our glue out here. Get this paint out of the way because I am notorious for setting my pieces down in my wet paint. All right, so the wood tiles have the letters that are scored in, so you should still be able to see those through the faux stain or paint. The score marks are super deep, so it takes a lot of paint to fill those in. So even if you painted it with 1 or 2 coats, or maybe even 3, you'll still be able to see that faint outline of where to put your numbers and letters. You get 2 personal one-time use super glue tubes. And to open your super glue, your applicator itself has a self-piercing piece inside. So all you have to do is screw on your applicator to open the bottle. And then you just leave it on and you're ready to go. A couple things to know as you're using these little super glues is hold your glue by the seam here. If you hold it up here by the tube, when you're twisting it, you're gonna be applying pressure, and when you apply pressure, glue is gonna start to squirt out as you turn your applicator on. So you don't want that to happen and then you have glue all over. So hold it by the seam, and then also you wanna hold it upright as you're turning on your applicator. So we're going to hold it by the seam. It's gonna be kind of upright. And then I just start to twist it on. I go super slow because even if you don't apply any pressure to the tube, sometimes that glue just wants to squirt out once we open that tube and release the pressure inside. And you can hear it even, there's a slight little hiss smart sound once you open that up. Okay, there we go. So now we're ready. If you don't take that off, we are good to go. So I'm gonna set that down and grab, I'm gonna take my letters off my tape so that they're easy to grab when I get to that tile. And then we have to worry about that. Super glue is super strong and very fast drying. It will dry within about 5 to 10 seconds. You don't have a lot of play in moving your piece around and making sure it's right in the right spot. So I always recommend you be ready. Maybe, these are pretty simple tiles. You only have the 2 pieces to glue down, but just know that once you place it, you have about 5 seconds to move it if you need to. So I kind of get everything ready, knowing what I'm gonna need, where I'm gonna need it, so I don't accidentally shift it or get it moved around. Okay, so we're gonna just start with this top tile, and because it's super glue, you do not need to cover this entire surface with glue. You only need a couple drops. So I'm gonna put drops at all the corners and ends. Now you can kind of see those drops there. That's all you need. Now, if you want to use a different glue that's going to give you a little more play and flexibility, something that doesn't dry as fast, you definitely can use a tacky glue, an Elmer's glue, a wood glue, whatever you want, an all-purpose glue. Those will all work fine. Now on the little numbers, I'm going to use 2 dots, one at the top, kind of one at the bottom. And then we'll place those down. And that's all there is to it. Just going to follow that around. I turn my tile so I can see the top and the bottom, and just make sure that my little piece is sitting inside that score mark. Okay, done. Now we're just gonna glue up all the pieces. All right, there we go, guys. I was able to glue them all with just the one glue bottle, but if you need both, you have those available. If not, you have an extra for another project, but here we go. We are finished with our Scrabble tile portion, and let's just see if I can spell a word here. Click. You have family, home, and love. And I will post a link to the website that helps lay out Scrabble tiles for Scrabble tile art, and actually for playing a game, kind of like a crossword puzzle. But there we go. Let's get to the picture block and get our hanger on that. Okay, so for the picture block, you have, dump out this little bag here, and I'll talk about these pieces. So this is the clip that will be on the top that we will screw in for hanging your picture. It has a screw that has a flat top here so that it doesn't interfere with our clip. And it's a little bit smaller in length. So let me just put these on the block here and see if I can't bring them up. You can see the difference in length. The shorter screw is for the clip. The longer screw is for the hanger. Okay? This is your hanger. It's called a D-ring. And we're gonna put that on first. So I'm gonna flip this over. We're gonna make sure that whatever you want for your top and bottom, you're working with the top up. And we're just gonna put our D-ring at the top here like this. We want this D-ring to not stick up past the wood block. We want it to just right be flush with the top there. But we also want it centered so it hangs well. So this is where your ruler comes in handy. Your piece of wood is about 7 inches long. It's about 1/8 bigger than 7 inches. And again, wood is all so different that it even varies sometimes in thickness. So measure your piece of wood from one edge to the other and divide whatever that is in half to find the center. Yours might be a little bit wider or even a little bit narrow. Even with the same piece of wood, you get a lot of variation in wood. All right, then we're gonna grab a pencil and I'm gonna put my D-ring at the top here and just put a little point right there, just so I know that's how far down I need to be. Then I'm gonna bring my ruler up to that point, and from there, this ruler is super dirty. Let's see if I can find I've used it in so many paint projects. I might have to grab a different one. If I can find my smaller ruler here. Oh, here it is. Okay, something I can see. All right, so again, here's my point. I put my D-ring down, right? And I just need to know how far down that little hole is. So I put a little point right there. It doesn't have to be big. I'm gonna put my pencil to that, and I'm gonna bring my ruler up to it, okay? And my center is 3.5. So I'm gonna go to my half mark. Which is right here. I'm gonna draw a line going across. And I'm gonna go straight up from that half mark. Okay, so I've got my line that goes across where my ruler was, and then where that half mark is, I pull the line straight up. That is gonna be the center of your hole for your D-ring, okay? And once you have that, we're gonna take the longer screw. We'll take your screwdriver and kind of press down to get it started. Your screw has a pointed end, and now we can just screw this in. I hold my screw just to help guide it so it doesn't slip and pop out. Now that's kind of hard to see, but we're right in the center there. I want to keep my screw straight up from that, and I'm going to pinch it with my fingers, not hard so that it, cuts my fingers, but just enough pressure to keep it from popping away from me. Keeps it straight up, and then as I twist, I'm applying pressure. And once it gets started and gets into that wood, you'll get to the point where it's a few screws in, a few rotations in, and it's starting to grip that wood as you go. And once you get to that point, it's not as difficult and you don't really have to hold it. Still want to apply pressure as you're screwing it in. You need to apply pressure to keep going in. Not a lot. Those screws are great because they have that twist. It kind of does the work for you. It wants to keep going in that same direction. So we get to the point where it's pretty tight. If you find that your D-ring is kind of pointed in the other direction or the wrong direction, or maybe it twisted around, just back it up a little bit, go the other way, and now you can adjust your D-ring so that it's straight up. So you want it to go straight up on your block there, and then give it a twist, and now it's locked in place. So that is how we are going to hang our picture frame. And we're going to come back around to this side and put our clip in. So I'm going to put my clip in. I'm just eyeballing it, so there's a small gap at the top here. And again, I'm going to just mark a point there. This is how far down I want my screw to be, is right there. So I'm going to bring that ruler back out. I'm going to bring it right up to that point. I'm going to draw a line going straight across, just a small one. You don't have to go all the way across, just a small line about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to find my center again. Make sure your ruler is in the right spot on either side, whatever side you're measuring from. And I'm going to pull a line up from that point. I'm going to darken it up so I can see it, because on this side we do have that dark stain. So you can see I did a short line going along the ruler, and then I pulled a line straight up. Where that, it's kind of like a T, right? So where they intersect, that is the center of my clip. And if you've got your line going too long, maybe you pulled your line too far out, that's okay. You can erase it after the fact. Mine's a little bit long on this side. I don't want to see that, so I'm just going to grab an eraser and erase it. If you can't get it to erase, you can just take your paint, whatever color it is, in this case brown. I can go over it with a little baby wipe and some brown and cover it up. So I'm going to turn it to its side so I can see it here. And I'm looking in this back hole, and I want to find the center there. So I'm lining that hole with my T intersection. And then I'm going to push my screw through that hole. And we're kind of screwing in from an angle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold this up so you can see it. I'm going to hold my fingers like this, and then I'm going to put that screw in there. So my fingers, my thumb and my finger are pinching the top, kind of in that area, the top of the clip. And as I pinch in, it's gonna hold my screw for me. So once I get it, you just have to get it started. The other thing you can do, if this is too hard to get started, you can always use a glue gun or an E600 type glue and just glue your clip onto. That works if you don't want to bother with the screw. Okay, so I'm pinching that screw, and we want to get it started. We're using a really good pressure as we're twisting it. And once it gets started, it's always just getting it started is the hard part, I feel. Once it gets going, we're good to go. So then we don't have to hold it. There we go. You'll be able to feel it catch. And I can move my fingers away and finish screwing that in until it's nice and tight. Now again, if your clip started to twist and it's pointing the wrong direction, you can back out your screw a little bit, make it loose, line it up the way you want it, and then we're just going to tighten it, holding the screw in place again so it doesn't twist. Tighten that screw, and there we go. Now we are ready to hang a picture. It's ready to hang. The other great thing about this wood block is it's self-standing. So if you didn't want to hang it, you could just kind of bend. Well, you don't even have to do anything with that D-ring. You could put this on a shelf if you don't want to hang it with your Scrabble tile. It will stand all by itself, and it's just a standing, nice, fun way to display a current picture of someone or your family or whatever that might be. So there's your wood block. We are finished with the tiles, and that is your August Joy Box. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this month's craft. It's super easy and it's so fun to display. It's such a fun way to hang some tile art on your wall. It's perfect for a family rec room or even just anywhere really. So remember, if you got your box and you're missing any pieces, please message us right away. We are a small business that's run out in our workshop / garage, and we package everything personally. So, you know, we're human. If something was missed, please let us know. I want to ship it out to you ASAP. So always inspect your box right when you get it. If your box comes damaged, or, you know, the post office shipped it and during transit it was damaged, let us know right away. We will ship a replacement out to you free of charge at no hassle to you. We want to make sure that you get a good working kit. So let us know if any of those things happen. You can message us, you can email me. The email is, or my email address is on the insert. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the month. Thanks for hanging out. Happy crafting, guys. Bye.